Chapter 7. Before describing my departure from Lilliput, I must explain a conspiracy that had been forming against me for nearly 2 months. Until then, I had known little of court politics. Although I had read about the ambitions and intrigues of princes and ministers, I never imagined I would become the victim of such schemes in a distant land that seemed so different from Europe. One night, a high-ranking lord whose life I had once helped save came secretly to my house. He dismissed his attendants and asked to speak with me in private. His face showed great concern, and he warned me that my life was in serious danger. He explained that several powerful officials had become my enemies. Among them were Skyresh Bolgalam, the High Admiral, whose reputation had been overshadowed by my capture of the Blefuscudian fleet, and Flimnap, the High Treasurer, whose resentment toward me had only grown stronger. Together with several other ministers, they had prepared articles accusing me of treason. The charges were extraordinary. One accusation claimed that I had committed treason by extinguishing the palace fire with my urine, despite having saved the imperial residence. Another accused me of refusing the emperor's command to completely conquer Blefuscu and enslave its people. I was also charged with maintaining friendly relations with Blefuscudian ambassadors and with planning to visit Blefuscu itself. My friend had obtained a copy of the charges and described the secret debates that followed. Many members of the council demanded my death. Some proposed setting fire to my house, while soldiers attacked me with poisoned arrows. Others suggested poisoning my clothing and bedding so that I would die in agony. The emperor, however, wished to appear merciful. After much discussion, a compromise was reached. Instead of executing me immediately, they would put out both my eyes. Afterwards, my food would gradually be reduced until I became weak and eventually died. The ministers praised this plan as an act of great mercy. My loyal friend Retold, the principal secretary, spoke in my defense as much as he could. Although he could not prevent the sentence, he persuaded the council to spare my life for the time being. It was largely through his efforts that the punishment was reduced from immediate execution to blinding. The plan was to keep the decision secret for a few days. Then the sentence would be formally announced, and surgeons would blind me by shooting sharp arrows into my eyes. After hearing this shocking news, I was left alone to consider my fate. At first, I thought about standing trial. I knew I had acted honestly and believed my services to the empire should count in my favor. But I had seen enough of political trials to know that powerful enemies often decide the outcome before the proceedings begin. I also considered resisting by force. While I still had my freedom, the entire empire could scarcely oppose me. Yet I rejected that idea at once. I remembered the favors the emperor had shown me and the promises I had made. At last, I made a different decision. Since I already had permission to visit Blefuscu, I resolved to leave before the sentence could be carried out. Early the next morning, I sent a letter to Retold, informing him that I was departing, according to the leave previously granted to me. Then I went to the coast, seized a large warship, tied a cable to it, and placed my clothes and belongings inside. Pulling the vessel behind me, I crossed the channel by wading and swimming until I reached the shores of Blefuscu. The people there had long expected my arrival. Guides led me toward the capital, where I waited outside the city gates for instructions. Soon I received word that the Emperor of Blefuscu, accompanied by the royal family and the leading officers of the court, was coming to welcome me. As they approached, I respectfully lay on the ground and kissed the Emperor's hand. I explained that I had come according to my promise and with the permission of my own emperor, wishing only to pay my respects and offer whatever service I could honestly provide. I said nothing about the accusations against me. At that time I still hoped the matter would remain secret while I was beyond the reach of my enemies. The Emperor of Blefuscu received me with great generosity and kindness. Although I faced difficulties because no house or bed could be built large enough for me, I was grateful to have escaped the danger that awaited me in Lilliput. Chapter 8. Gulliver returns home. 3 days after arriving in Blefuscu, I was walking along the northeastern coast when I noticed something strange floating in the sea. At first, it looked like an overturned object, but as I drew closer, I realized it was a real boat. Believing it might offer a way back to my own country, I immediately informed the Emperor of Blefuscu and asked for assistance. He kindly provided ships, sailors, ropes, and workers to help recover it. With great effort, we managed to pull the boat to shore and turn it upright. To my delight, it had suffered little damage. The sight of such a large vessel amazed the people of Blefuscu, who gathered in great numbers to see it. I told the Emperor that fortune had placed this boat in my path, and that I hoped to use it to return home. He generously granted me permission to repair it and prepare for my departure. Soon afterward, news arrived from Lilliput. The Emperor of Lilliput had finally learned that I was not returning. He sent an ambassador to Blefuscu carrying the charges that had been made against me. The ambassador demanded that I be sent back to Lilliput bound hand and foot so that I could receive my punishment. He declared that the Emperor of Lilliput had shown great mercy by sentencing me only to the loss of my eyes. The Emperor of Blefuscu refused. He replied politely that it was impossible to transport me by force and reminded the envoy that I had helped bring peace between the two empires. He also explained that I would soon be leaving of my own accord in the boat I had discovered. The Emperor of Blefuscu then offered me his protection and invited me to remain in his service. Although I believed his offer was sincere, I had learned enough about princes and ministers to be cautious. I thanked him respectfully, but explained that I preferred to trust my fate to the sea rather than become the cause of future disputes between two kingdoms. Work on the boat continued quickly. Hundreds of workers helped me make sails, ropes, and other equipment. I cut down large trees for masts and oars, while the Emperor's craftsmen assisted with the finishing work. After about a month, everything was ready. When the time came to depart, the Emperor and the royal family came to bid me farewell. They treated me with great kindness and presented me with gifts, including gold and a portrait of the Emperor himself. I loaded the boat with food and supplies. I also brought several cows, bulls, sheep, and rams, hoping to introduce these remarkable animals to England. The Emperor would not allow me to take any of his subjects, and I gave my word that I would not attempt to do so. On September 24th, 1701, I set sail. After several days at sea, I spotted a distant sail. As I approached, I saw with great joy that it was an English ship. My heart leapt at the sight of my country's flag. The vessel was commanded by Captain John Biddle, an honest and capable sailor. When I told him my story, he at first believed that hardship had disturbed my mind. However, when I showed him the tiny cattle I carried in my pockets along with the gold and treasures I had received in Blefuscu, he became convinced that my account was true. The captain treated me with great kindness, and our voyage continued safely. At last, on April 13th, 1702, we arrived in England. I was overjoyed to return home. My little cattle survived the journey and attracted much attention. Many people paid to see them, and I eventually sold them for a considerable profit. Their offspring later became well known for the quality of their wool. I spent 2 months with my wife and children. Yet, despite my happiness at seeing them again, my desire to travel had not diminished. The call of distant lands was stronger than ever. After providing well for my family, I once again prepared for a new voyage. With tears on both sides, I said farewell to my wife, my son Johnny, and my daughter Betty. Then I boarded the merchant ship Adventure, bound for Surat. Thus ended my first voyage, though many stranger adventures still awaited me. And so ends Gulliver's first extraordinary voyage. From the tiny kingdom of Lilliput to the shores of home, his journey was filled with wonder, danger, and lessons about power, pride, and human nature. But Gulliver's adventures are far from over. In the next part, he will set sail once again toward lands even stranger than those he has already seen. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this retelling, don't forget to subscribe and join us for the next chapter of this timeless classic.